The following is a production of Stevenson Media. The Houston Sports State of the Union podcast is brought to you by Stephen Terry Pest Elimination. Call 713-477-0047. If it's scary, call Stephen Terry. Want to tip the host? Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Get a free Houston Sports State of the Union podcast t-shirt with a donation of $50 or more. The Houston Sports State of the Union podcast is brought to you by Upscale Roofing. Our quality is through the roof. Visit upscaleroofingtx.com for a free quote.
This is the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson.
My goodness, thank you so much. Please be seated. My fellow Houstonians, welcome to this Houston Sports State of the Union address for the week of October 13th. I am the self-appointed president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson. As always, there are a million different things you could be doing this evening. You chose to spend a little bit of time with me, and I appreciate it. On tonight's show, the Houston Texans are now 5-1 after dominating the Patriots last week. But are the injuries starting to catch up with this team? We will talk about it, and we will talk about the Texans versus the Packers coming up this Sunday. Also, the Houston Rockets wrapped up the preseason last night against the Spurs. I will give the young core of the Rockets a preseason grade, and we will look ahead to the regular season opener versus the Charlotte Hornets. Now, I finally published my video of my interview with Miran Fader. I'd like to encourage you guys to go watch that video. I will have a link in the description of this video once this live is done. Are Houston sports fans too fickle with their feelings about our sports teams? We will discuss all of that and more. I would like to give away some swag. If I get some participation in the chat, maybe we can give away some swag, take a phone call, do some Houston trivia. I'm also going to give you an opportunity to win some swag if you can correctly guess the final score of the Texans versus Green Bay Packers. Before we get started, I want to remind you of the ways that you can continue to support this show. One of them you're doing right now. You're watching. Hopefully by now you're hitting share. You're sharing with your friends, your family. Remind them to like, follow, subscribe wherever they get their podcast fix. If you enjoy watching the podcast, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitch. You can find me on X. If you prefer to listen, anywhere you listen to podcasts, you will find this show other than Pandora. Sorry, I'm not on Pandora. It was too convoluted getting onto Pandora. So, but anywhere else, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, anywhere you listen to podcasts, you will find the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. That audio is usually available within 30 to 45 minutes after this live is finished. But that is the best way you can support me. Continue to watch, continue to listen, and please share. If you are watching the video, right here in the corner, there is a QR code to my tip jar. I will also have that link in the description shortly after this live is done. If you would like to leave a tip, I would greatly appreciate it. Anything you leave continues to go towards the show so that I can continue bringing you more content. A donation of $50 or more will get you a Houston Sports State of the Union podcast t-shirt. Now, the other way you can support me is by using my affiliate links. Those will also be in the description. They're not currently there while I'm live, but once this live is done, I will put affiliate links for Houston Texans, Houston Astros, Houston Rockets. There's even some U of H and some Houston Dynamo links for fan gear on my Amazon affiliates. If you guys buy any of your fan gear with those links, I will get a commission from that. There is also links to the equipment I use to bring you this fine podcast. If you purchase that equipment with those Amazon links, I will get a little bit of change from that as well, and that will be greatly appreciated. So those are the ways that you can support the show. I do also have one more spot available for sponsorship if you're interested in doing that. So yeah, I would love to represent your business and help grow our businesses together. So those are all the ways you can support the show. I thank you so much for being here right now. If you are watching live, or if you're listening, I thank you as well. Let's get into it, and let's start with the state of the Houston Texans. All right, the state of the Houston Texans is brought to you by Stephen Terry Pest Elimination. I keep telling you guys, Stephen Terry is the man you need to call to get rid of all of your pests, whether it's pesky critters trying to get into your home because it's getting colder outside, or on those days in Texas where it's not cold anymore and those awful mosquitoes that have become a year-round staple are biting you and your family. Stephen Terry is the man to call to take care of all of that. He also offers DIY kits as well. Stephen Terry Pest Elimination is a family-owned business, and it's serving all of the Southeast Houston area and its surrounding areas. When you call Stephen Terry at 713-477-0047, let him know you heard about him on the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, and he will give you 10% off of your initial services. That's amazing because his prices are already great and he gets the job done. So please give him a call once again at 713-477-0047. If it's scary, call Stephen Terry. Stephen, thank you so much again for your support over the years, and I appreciate you very much, bud. Now, Houston Texans get a dominating win versus the Patriots, 41-21 last week. Houston fans still aren't happy. They're going to find some reason, no matter what, to complain, and that's okay. I understand. I know when the Houston Texans had the amazing offseason that they had, you probably expected them to go 17-0 and to blow everybody out by 35 points. Now, if you watch this show, I told you, don't do that. Don't fall victim to all of the hype. This is a good football team. They have the potential to be a great football team, but this is the NFL. Any given Sunday, any team can be beaten. And we have a team in the Houston Texans that's only been beaten once. It's a pretty bad loss, I granted. But you know what? It seems like the Minnesota Vikings are beating the brakes off of everybody. It might just be that they're a really, really good team. And I think we talked about it during that game. The Texans beat themselves, really, in that only loss that they have. So all things being said, you're in first place. You're 5-1. Some different circumstances, you could be undefeated. But the Houston Texans are among the top teams in the NFL. Why are we not satisfied? Why, when we beat the Patriots in New England, which the team had never done in franchise history, why are we not satisfied with that? Why do we feel like we have to complain that it was against a rookie quarterback and that rookie quarterback threw 3 touchdowns and the running game for the Patriots was fairly decent? Listen, man, first of all, the Texans could have scored 50. They got in their own way in the second quarter. And in each game, they've had at least a quarter, sometimes multiple quarters, where everything is just not clicking. That is the NFL. You know, I was talking to Ruben on the Twin Toros podcast. Shout out to you, Ruben. And I said, you know, even D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud said it's very rare for any team in the NFL to just be clicking on all cylinders for 4 straight quarters. And I think what happens is, as Houston Texans fans, we are watching intently all of the Houston Texans games every minute with bated breath at every snap. And most of us are watching the highlights of all the other teams. So it's really easy to see those highlights, read the stat sheet, and think, oh man, these teams are so much better than us. But when you break it down, even though, listen, the Texans have their flaws, there's things that they can and are beginning to do better. At the end of the day, defensively, they're the number 4 team in the NFL. They're number 3 against the pass. They're kind of middle of the road against the run right now. I think that's going to improve as the season goes on. Hopefully it'll improve this week against the Green Bay Packers, which we'll get into a little bit later. But the Houston Texans are a good team. They balled out the way they needed to against the Patriots. You know, we talked about last week how the Texans needed to get some takeaways. They needed to get some sacks instead of the almost sacks. They did everything we asked them to. And they got a 20-point win on the road in the NFL. That is nothing to shake a stick at. But still, people were not happy. People were not satisfied. They nitpicked at this team. And I'm not just talking about fans, even the Houston sports media. With all due respect to John and Lance of ESPN Houston, who I had an opportunity to meet. So I would probably say this to their face. And it was really more Lance than John. Lance was kind of nitpicking about the fact that The Texans, yes, they rushed the ball against the Patriots for 192 yards, but there was 2 50-plus yard carries, one by Joe Mixon and the other by Dameon Pierce. Those yards still count, my friend. And when you take those away, you still ran for somewhere between 80, 90 yards for the game. We got to stop nitpicking at this team. Yes. Are there things they need to do better? Yes, there are. And do we have some concerns about the way these injuries are piling up? Absolutely, I do. But at the end of the day, if you'd have told me at the beginning of the season, through 6 weeks, the Texans would be 5-1, I would have taken that. You guys, if you watch this show when the schedule was released, by the time we got to this Green Bay game, I chalked us up for a loss in this Green Bay game, spoiler alert. But I had the Texans at 5-2 after the first 7 weeks of the season. Might have had us at 5-3. But that's why, listen, I'll absolutely take it. They did everything we asked them to do. Every week they've gotten a little bit better. There's less penalties by the offensive line. Laramie Tunsil hasn't gotten a false start in 3 games, I believe. It's just, there's too much nitpicking going on in this team right now. No, they are not, their offense does not look like the greatest show on turf right now. But, you know, the offense broke out. You had good games from Tank Dell. You had a good game from Stephon Diggs. That's the reason you got him, is to add some depth to that wide receiver room. When Nico Collins went down, without Stephon Diggs, you might be a little bit devastated, but you have number 7 at quarterback. He knows how to distribute the ball where it needs to go. We have a good football team. Are they great yet? No, not yet. There's still time. They can continue to get better, and they can become great. I think that's going to start, and I talked about this on the Twin Toros podcast with my man Ruben, that we actually just finished a few hours ago. You guys, I'll put the link in the description for that show as well if you want to go check it out. We just talked about how this game is an opportunity to maybe get the Houston Texans fans calmed down a little bit. If you can go into Green Bay, Lambeau Field, all the history, the mystique of that stadium, a place you've only won once before, and the last time you won there, your head coach was playing linebacker. That was all the way back in 2008. And I was telling Ruben that the Texans might want to see if the coach can suit up for this game, because we've got some injuries at the linebacker position right now. We'll get into in a little bit. But if you can go into this game and you find a way to win, and you're 6-1, and you did so with those injuries that I'm talking about, without your number 1 wide receiver, without your captain in the middle of the defense, without your first-round cornerback that you drafted to shut down the other side of the field opposite of Derek Stingley Jr. If you're able to go in and get this win, I don't care how close the win is. My man Ruben said, I'll take it if we win by a safety. I don't care. You go in and get this win with the mystique of the building, all of the things that I mentioned before. Then I hope Houston Texans fans will look at this team and say, you know what? This is a good football team. And I think a win like that would probably be a shot in the arm to the players themselves, to the entire organization, and maybe a boost of confidence that propels you forward getting into the back half of this schedule where it's going to get tougher. You're playing some short weeks. You're playing some primetime games against really good teams. You're playing the Ravens. You're playing the Chiefs. You're playing the Lions. If you win this game against Jordan Love and this offense, you just might turn that heat up, under that fire underneath the team, to be, as I often say, cooking with grease. In order to do that, this Houston Texans team is going to have to score some points, because I think that the Packers are going to score points on us. I think with a fully healthy defense, there was an opportunity that the Packers would be able to put up some points. But with the injuries that we're dealing with the suspension of Mario Edwards Jr., who is now suspended for 4 games due to the violation of the substance abuse policy of the NFL, that's tough. Fortunately, you're getting Danico Autry back. I guess Danico, on his way out the door, handed the needle over to to Mario Edwards. I say that in jest. Let me just say, we had someone comment on the Twin Toros ESPN video that if we're going to be reporting, we need to be accurate, because Danico Autry got busted not for steroids, but for Adderall. And I kindly responded to the gentleman. Number one, we're not reporters. Number two, if you watched the Twin Toros podcast, I told you that I felt like it was likely that both of these players got busted for Adderall, although I find it strange that one of them was suspended for 6 games and the other for 4. Perhaps, I don't know the history of Denico Autry, but perhaps this is not the first time he's been tagged on that banned substance list. So I don't want to speculate on what they might have taken. I think it was officially reported that Denico Autry had taken Adderall, and I don't know if maybe he was taking it for the purpose. Obviously, he doesn't have a prescription, because I'm assuming if it's on the banned substance list, you can't be prescribed that. If you do have ADHD, I'm assuming they find something else for you to be prescribed. But I thank the gentleman for watching, but I don't claim to be a reporter. So every now and again, I'm going to say things. It'll be in jest, or maybe it'll just be me speculating, but I don't claim to have any inside information. I just know that Mario Edwards Jr. has been balling out for this team. It's hard for me to imagine that Denico Autry comes in after not playing with the team or practicing with the team and just immediately balls out. That's going to have to be a process. So Tim Settle Jr., Khalil, we're going to have to see some of those players make some plays. And this is a game with all the injuries in the secondary and at the linebacking core. This is a game that Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter need to ball out. And yes, you balled out last week against a really bad offensive line against the Patriots. The offensive line for the Green Bay Packers isn't great. It's good. It's more than likely better than the Patriots. But yeah, I want to see those guys get in there and wreck shop. If you put some pressure on Jordan Love, then that's going to also help by taking pressure off of your secondary of having to hold up in coverage. And that's really going to be the key if the Texans are going to get the win. Now, once again, you guys, if you watch my show, you know I predicted them to lose this game. And I have not changed my mind on that. I think the Houston Texans are going to have a hard time pulling this one out. If it's high scoring, they have a chance. If it's low scoring, at least if they don't score a lot of points, they're not going to win. I predicted 24-21 Texans lose to the Packers. And you know what? Like I said, if you're 5-2 after 7 weeks in the NFL and you really haven't even hit your full stride as a team, I say that is nothing to shake a stick at whatsoever. What do you guys think the score is going to be? Once again, I'm going to give you an opportunity to win some free merch. Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, t-shirt, hoodie, cap, whatever you think you would like, if you can correctly guess the score of the Texans versus Packers. I'm going to assume most of the Texans fans are predicting a win. I don't want to be accused of not being a good Texans fan because I'm predicting for them to lose. I'm just trying to keep it real and be realistic. I hope I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, next week I will come back here and I will apologize and I will celebrate with all of you that the Houston Texans are 6-1 and possibly top seed in the NFL. That would be amazing. Okay, let's move on, if we can, to the state of the Houston Rockets. All right. The state of the Houston Rockets is brought to you by Upscale Roofing. Now, Stephen Terry and his family, they're running 2 great companies. It's not just Stephen Terry Pest Elimination, but also Upscale Roofing. You guys know that your roof is the first line of defense against all of the elements. You want to make sure it's in good shape, and you want to make sure that the right people are keeping it in shape. Or if you get a new roof, you want to make sure they're doing the job correctly. There are 2 guarantees with Upscale Roofing. They're going to be honest, and they're going to treat you like family. Not that weird uncle that makes everybody feel creepy, but the family you like, the family that you love. So go to upscaleroofingtx.com, schedule a free inspection with Upscale Roofing. They guarantee you that their quality is through the roof. Thank you to Stephen once again, his sons Ethan and Tyler, and his lovely wife Shanda. Thank you to the entire Terry family for your support once again throughout the years. And I am looking forward to going to Rockets opening night with Steven and his lovely wife, Shanda, along with my wife. Speaking of, the Houston Rockets wrapped up the preseason. They went 3-1. That doesn't really matter, especially last night's game. They pretty much played against the Spurs G League team. The Spurs pretty much sat everyone. And the Rockets, though, they did play everyone in their rotation. They treated the preseason game like it was a regular season game. The Rockets have looked really good in spots this preseason. The ball movement, I thought, was really crisp last night. And now, of course, they're playing inferior competition, in my opinion. I saw somebody in the comments of a YouTube video today say that they thought the Spurs were going to make the playoffs. I don't know, man. Maybe. I mean, when you have a unicorn on your team, I guess anything's possible. But the West is just going to be so hard. But the Rockets will look good. One thing's for sure. Alperen Şengün, he looks like he's in midseason form. He looks like he's poised to have a big season. If you guys go check out SB Nation's The Dream Shake, that is the website that I write for. We have done player previews on every player on this roster. You guys go check it out, dreamshake.com. I did Alperen Şengün's preview myself. And what I said is that it's time for Alperen to embrace the fact that he's the best player on this team. And I would like to see him step up as a vocal leader as well as a leader on the court. I think that's the one thing that's possibly been missing from him. And I don't know if it's because Jalen was picked ahead of him and maybe the consensus at the time was, hey, this is supposed to be Jalen Green's team. Well, 3 years into this experiment, Alperen Şengün has definitely established that he is the best player on this team. The offense should run through him. And I think because of that, it's time for him to step up as a more vocal leader on the court as well. When their offense runs through him, the ball movement looks good. Also, shout out to Fred VanVleet. I know a lot of Rockets fans are more focused on the young future of this team. But Fred VanVleet sat out for the game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And you could see a significant difference in the way this offense ran when he was not on the floor. In fact, at times, the Houston Rockets looked almost confused and not knowing what plays they needed to run, which is a little bit concerning because Fred VanVleet logged a lot of minutes last season. And the hope was that this season, you would not have to play him so many minutes and maybe have him be more fresh down the stretch. Jalen Green has had a pretty decent preseason. I know people were ready to jump on him because he had a not so great game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, but the Rockets in general didn't have a great game. Alperen had a pretty good game. I think he was 5 of 7 from the field. The most crazy thing about his preseason is that he almost hasn't missed from the free throw line. I hope that's just not an aberration, something that's happening in the preseason, because he's probably going to get to the free throw line a lot, and he needs to make those. The Rockets got to the free throw line quite a bit in the preseason. In that particular game versus the Thunder, they didn't make very many. That's one thing that they're definitely going to have to improve on is their free throw shooting. I think about my father all the time. Every time we watch an NBA game together and somebody misses a free throw, inevitably he always says, how can a professional basketball player not make a free throw? It's understandable. Me personally, I mean, I may be pretty decent at shooting free throws, but these NBA players do pretty much everything else better than I do. So I'm not gonna criticize them too heavily, but I'm pretty sure you could probably chalk up at least a handful of losses by the Rockets last season to miss free throws. Some of those close games they let get away. There's definitely games that slipped away in the final minutes of a game that definitely came from the Houston Rockets not being able to close things out by making their free throws. So that's just one small part of it. But yeah, I mean, you want to see this team improve overall. They were a top 10 defense last season. You would hope that they can make it to be maybe a top 5 defense this year. And I think they're going to need to, because if you watch them in the preseason, one thing was extremely clear, and that's that outside shooting is still going to be a problem for this team. When you're 41-41 after being abysmal, like, everybody's happy, but now the expectation is set. And every single player, to a man, when they were asked during the Houston Rockets media day, what does a successful season look like for this team? Every single one of them said playoffs. Actually, Amen Thompson said win a championship. Look, man, I'm with you, buddy, but let's slow our roll a little bit. Let's go ahead and make it to the play-in first. But I like that sentiment for sure. And I think he's an extreme competitor. I wrote Amen Thompson's player preview as well for the Dream Shake. And what I said is I think he's an absolute wild card for this team. Ime Udoka calls him a plug-and-play player. I mean, he can play 1 through 5 and is extremely versatile. Shooting is still going to be a problem for him. He did make a couple of threes during the preseason, but I'm not going to expect a whole lot of him shooting the ball. He also missed some very bad misses in the mid-range, even airballing a few, 15-footers. I hope at some point he becomes a serviceable jump shooter. But what he does by attacking the basket and what he does on the defensive end, that's going to keep him on the court. But shooting's it's clear it's going to be an issue for this team. And that's why my X factor for the Houston Rockets this season is Cocaine Curry himself, Mr. Reed Sheppard. How in the hell did Reed Sheppard age like 10 years from Summer League to the preseason? Facial hair is crazy. First of all, looking at him in the draft, I didn't know he could grow a mustache, and he's got a little bit of chin music going on too. I didn't know that was possible, but he looks like he aged 10 years. And the best thing about Reed Sheppard is he looks really good as a basketball player. He had a really good preseason following up his really good summer league. I think he's going to find minutes on this team early. And that's good because, we saw them mix up some of these rotations. You even saw Fred VanVleet and Reed Sheppard play together, and they put Thompson at the 4. I think the possibilities for this team with all of the athleticism, when you got Amen Thompson running with a full head of steam, and he's got Jalen Green on one side and he's got Cam Whitmore on the other, man, I just get tingly thinking about it, man. They're just going to have to put it all together, and their strong suit is going to be defense. Because if they can get defensive stops, they can get out and run before the other team's defense sets and forces them to play in the half court. Unfortunately, they're not going to be as good in the half court, but when you got Fred VanVleet and, I called him Cocaine Curry, Craig. Honestly, his game, and I've told you guys this, and I wrote about it in the Dream Shake, his game reminds me more of Chris Paul than Steph Curry, at least right now. I think they're going to be a little bit better in the half court because they have a point guard, even though he's young. I mean, he's young, but he plays the pick and roll very smart. He's got a high IQ. He seems to make the right passes. He gets in the passing lanes defensively. I've been really, really, really pleasantly, I don't want to say surprised, because when I saw him in Summer League, I thought to myself, like, if he can do this against the real competition, then he's going to carve himself out some minutes. Look, man, Ime Udoka's got really good problem on his hand. Here's the thing. I think he's definitely going to play early. He'll probably have a short leash because we all know preseason basketball, regular season basketball, two completely different things. I think that's why you have the insurance policy of Aaron Holiday. I was a little bit confused. Like, why are you bringing this guy back and drafting Reed Sheppard? Well, the fact of the matter is, if Reed Sheppard had not shown what he's shown up to this point, then he probably starts the year at the G League level, and you need someone who can shoot and play some backup point guard minutes behind Fred VanVleet whenever, Amen Thompson is playing in the dunker spot. I can't wait till the season opener versus the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets got some players, man. We'll see if LaMelo Ball can stay healthy. They brought back, what's his name? The dude who beat up his girlfriend, Bridges. I hate to put it like that, but yeah. Here's the thing, man, and it's really unfortunate, but we live in a society where, if you can still play, it doesn't matter if you beat up your girlfriend or, whatever you do to break the law. I'm pretty sure he's going to get a lot of boos at the game coming up on Wednesday the 23rd. Like I said, I'm going to be there. Stephen Terry and his wife are going to be there with me and my wife. Mr. 713, Ruben Calvillo, will be there as well. I'm going to make sure I bring you your T-shirt, Ruben. Your Twin Toros T-shirt. He still hasn't copped his. And I'm going to bring some, I don't know, I might bring some Houston Sports State of the Union merch out there too, man. Try to get the word about this pod spread. But yeah, I can't wait for the season. My prediction is that the Houston Rockets, I agree with every single one of them who said there's no reason we should not make the playoffs. At minimum, the play-in. If you don't make the play-in, then we're going to start having some serious conversations about Rafael Stone and his ability to put this team together. And I think there's... listen, man, if we don't make the playoffs, it's probably because Jalen Green had another disappointing season. And if that happens, then even I won't be able to defend him. You guys know I have been the biggest Jalen Green supporter and been asking Rockets fans to please be patient with him. But, he's going to be a restricted free agent after this season. And we'll see. If he balls out, somebody, not the Houston Rockets, is probably going to offer him a max contract. And the Rockets will have to decide if they want to match that or not, or if they want to move on and start building the team more around Alperen Şengün and some of the other young talent on this team. I'm also excited before I get, I forgot to bring up Tari Eason. Tari Eason is back. I'm really excited to see what he does. I hope that he's on the court instead of on the sidelines in goofy t-shirts, talking trash to teams that absolutely obliterate them. I'm looking forward to this season, man. It is a great time to be a Houston sports fan. I know, guys, we're reeling and we're a little bit disappointed about what happened to the Astros. As we get into the baseball offseason, let me just say this. I'm not going to do a state of the Houston Astros, but the amount of misinformation on the internet is really, really frustrating and annoying. You guys maybe have seen, if you've been on Facebook or Twitter, in the last few months, they keep putting out this fake post that Alex Bregman got a 10-year contract from the Astros. And there's people who believe it. There's people in the comments like, oh, thank God he's staying. Or there's some people really pissed off that he got a 10-year contract when he's already 30 years old. It's not true. Okay. Not everything we read on the internet is true, people. I seriously doubt that Alex Bregman is going to be back, although there are some reports that he likely could be back. We'll see. Obviously, for Jim Crane, it's going to have to be for the right number. I told you I'm not doing a State of the Houston Astros, and here I am doing a State of the Houston Astros. But the State of the Union in Houston is very strong, man. Listen, guys, don't try to burn the city down if the Texans do not win come this Sunday in Green Bay. Considering all the injuries that they have, considering the fact that the Green Bay Packers are now getting healthy, especially in their wide receiving core, considering the fact that, Jordan Love is now healthy. I told Ruben on the Twin Toros today, this is almost like a scheduled loss, if you think about it. But hey, go out there, play your hardest, try to win, hopefully come out healthy. And 5-2 after 7 weeks, once again, that's nothing to shake a stick at. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. Let me remind you one more time of the ways that you guys can continue to support the show. One of them you've been doing this entire time. You watch, you listen, you share with your friends and family. Once again, remind them, and don't you forget to follow, like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast fix. If you'd like to leave me a tip, I will have a link to the tip jar in the show notes of this video or audio that you're listening to. If you're watching, there's a QR code right there. Go ahead and scan that with your cell phone. If you leave a donation of $50 or more, I will get you some Houston Sports State of the Union podcast merch. I want you guys to know that the Twin Toros also have a tip jar. So when you go watch those videos, the link to our tip jar will be in the description of those videos or the audio that you're listening to as well. Once again, anything you leave us is going to go back into our show to continue to bring you great content. And there's also affiliate links that will be in the description for this video for Houston Sports fan gear and the equipment I use to bring you this very podcast. And lastly, there is one spot available for sponsorship. I hope that I've done a good job of representing my current sponsors, which is Stephen Terry Pest Elimination and Upscale Roofing. Want to remind you guys that this show is brought to you by those wonderful companies. I will have the links to their website. Actually, the links to their websites are in my link tree. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see upscaleroofingtx.com and stephenterry.com. The links are there. And all of my social medias, I'll be sharing all of their stuff as well. So thank you so much to them. Thank you to all of you for the listeners. Next week's show is going to be on Friday. Same bat time, same bat channel. In the meantime, you know what I want you to do? I want you to stay 10 toes down for H-Town. I love you. Good night.
This has been the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, hosted by Nick Stevenson. Tune in next week for more news and analysis of your favorite Houston teams. Please follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, the app formerly known as Twitter, if that's even really still a thing. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.